Good evening, folks. Welcome to a very special Wednesday night Tigercast. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I do want to say off the bat that this show hasn't just coincided because we just lost a pre-season game. We actually had this planned for quite some time, but real life stuff gets in the way, and it's just one of those things that we've finally got around to doing it. But we've got Cameron Hicks back onto the show. How are you, mate? Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. It's been in the works for a bit, but finally got here.
It's actually probably been more beneficial for me that it's taken us a little bit longer because it gave me time to finish off these slides. But no, finally good to get you back on. We thought we would do a special show dedicated to talking about the 2025 draftee crop. Now, whether whether Richmond supporters like to admit it or not, we're probably realistically in line for a fairly high end pick with our own pick. I just think that we're probably going to be in that bottom four area. But then we obviously have the North Melbourne first round pick as well, which plays into things too, which makes it very interesting. But before we get into that part of it, what are your expectations and thoughts on the season coming up? You obviously had quite a bit of research and knowledge about the youngsters coming through that we drafted. Are you happy with the draft haul? Are you happy with their progress? What do you see happening for the young kids in the early parts of 2025?
I would say initially with the draft, I was a bit shocked with the way we went. Like the smoke screens all caught me off guard personally. Like they made the Bo Allen selection like pretty clear, obvious that they were going to head that way. So I thought Bo Allen was going to be one of the locks. Then we went the Taj Houghton direction, Jonty Fall. So everything was just a bit shit ass. But at the end, I've sort of realised that this is like the perfect crop that we needed. You look at the
Yeah,
foundation of what we're trying to build with the key forwards, the rucks, the midfield. You sort of build that spine early, which is like something that I was a big fan of wanting us to do early. And then you sort of add those additional pieces as the years go through. So through free agency, through the trade period, whatever. But I think we've got that main core locked down, which is probably the main priority, I think.
it's interesting you mentioned the smoke screen because I think a lot of us were kind of resigned to the fact that we were getting Bo Allen in just based on what we hear. Um, Blair Hartley's played this trade period and draft period extremely well, hasn't he? I mean,
Yeah,
he's kept,
like
I think, the ability for the club to keep their cards very close to their chest. And even though that you're in like the AFL industry and still couldn't get close enough to the real truth, he got, I guess, most of it. But to be able to keep their cards that close is a pretty good effort.
Yeah, it was like I'll go back to the Bo Allen thing. It was pretty much certain throughout all the rooms that Bo Allen was going to go to Richmond with pick 12.
So
That
you're
was
talking
sort of,
industry wide. That's
yeah,
people from
industry
all,
wise,
yeah,
that was the expectation on it. So when West Coast realised that we passed, they were trying to trade up because they thought, oh, they're going to go a different direction. They're going to go Hot and then Allen. Then we went
yeah.
full, and then they're like, how has this happened to us? How's he landed? And then you just sort of realise that he's a genius at the end of the day. So played his cards beautifully, and I think we'll get something similar again this year again. So
Now, with this year's crop, obviously you hear a lot of talk about this year's draft being compromised, which is probably true to an extent, but I kind of feel, and you'll know more about this than I will, but I kind of feel like the compromised part may not kick in till about maybe picks 8, 9 onwards. There
yeah,
might be one a bit
yeah,
earlier, but I just feel like that with the higher end picks that we're probably going to have just through the virtue of our season probably not being as good as we would like, might mean it's not as compromised as some may think.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to go. It sort of starts from that 7 to 10 range. That's where those sort of academy players and father sons come through. But the one I'm fuming we can't get access to is Daniel Annable. I think he's going to be a genuine jet, but I just don't know how he fits in through Brisbane, but they'll find a way. Like I think he'll be the one that breaks into top five, top three conversations as that sort of academy father son. I'm just so big on him as a player.
Their luck when it comes to these type of picks in the last 5 years has been extraordinary. Like the two Ashcroft picks are going to be exceptional. Was who they get this year? Was it someone they got this year, or was it someone for next year? I don't know, but either way, they've racked up some pretty good names in recent memory.
Yeah, I think it's just a credit to the way those kids are brought up as well. Like a lot goes behind the scenes through those academies. Like Brisbane's a very NRL compromised area, and they get a lot of NRL based talent converting into AFL. Like from what I believe, Daniel Annable was an NRL like junior coming through, and then they sort of knocked on his door and said, "You got the athletic traits to play AFL," and he just converted beautifully. So I think it's just I guess, factor that they have such a what's the word I'm looking for here? It's just a smooth transition through the academies is why those northern clubs get the pick of the bunch, basically.
They've done extremely well for themselves. But as I said, we are probably going to end up with a couple of higher picks. Now, on the basis that we think it will be less compromised in these earlier picks, would it be your view that we are better off going to the draft with these 2 picks? I mean, there's a little bit of speculation now with the new trade rules that you can trade future 26 and 27 picks, that we've got quite a hand that we can use to trade in an experienced player. But would you say walk to the draft with potentially pick 1 and potentially pick 5 and then trade futures?
Look, I wouldn't throw away any possibility. Like, I'll keep our cards open because there's opportunities that will come. Like, you just don't know what can happen in a few months' time with potentially guys like Cadman that we would have interest in coming years. If there's a chance to get him now and GWS say, give us your second first-round pick, I think it would be quite silly of us not to do that initially, I think anyway. So I guess, keep our cards open, but my expectation is that we'll take it to the draft, but you just don't know what can actually happen. So,
well, look, Blair's a mastermind, so it's easy, very easy to now sit here and say in Blair we trust because he was a genius this off season, and no doubt he will do it again. All right, let's get stuck into it. So I've put together a few slides. I can't remember how many, it might be like 12 or 13 players that you identified as some of the more talented players in the top end of the draft pool that you can give us some extra information on. Some of these players people may have heard of, some people may not have heard of. The first one we'll start with is Dyson Sharp, who plays for Central District. He's a defender/midfielder, 188 centimetres, averaged 17.8 disposals for South Australia in 2024. And I think, if you would ask a lot of people, he's probably the one that's been the most spoken about in terms of that number 1 pick contention spot.
Yeah, for good reason as well. You look at Jason Horne-Francis and you think identical clone. Like, there's nothing that he does different to him. There's nothing that Horne-Francis does different. They're both identical players. I guess tackling is something that they both really value in their game, and they're both absolute brutes when it comes to it. Sharp, I think, doesn't have the forward potential, though, that Horne-Francis does. But again, who knows that he can't develop that? I think that's something that you can develop through the system, through a couple of years. But again, it's 5.5 tackles for SA at the championship, 6.5 clearances. He's just an absolute unit. Like, you watch him play and you notice him. He's never going to have the 26, 27 disposal average mark ever, I don't think, in his career. He'll get to that 22, 23, but his disposal will be more effective than a bloke that gets 30. He's just that type of midfielder.
So his impact per possession will be greater than what a lot of other players will be.
For sure.
Christian's asked, are there any knocks on Sharp's athleticism at all?
I guess because of his size. Like with Lawler, what we've seen is he came in bigger, and they're going to obviously they've toned him down. I think you've seen that already. He's toned down quite a bit. I don't think his athleticism is an issue. He's got great running capacity. He's an athletic player, so his size can always come down, but nothing that's a weakness.
Yeah, and I think the athletic side of things are probably things that clubs back themselves into to shape and mold a little bit. But no, from everything I've seen of him, he looks a genuine weapon. And it's going to be interesting to see if he holds on to that number 1 draft, potential draft spot. We obviously saw in 2024 that it shifted from Smiley to Jagger to Fino Sullivan, and then by the end of it, Lawler. So plenty to play at, obviously, but it feels like he will be at the pointy end of the draft selections.
Yep.
Next on our list, we've got Willem Duursma, who I know a lot of people seem to be really excited about. From Gippsland Power, a utility player, 191 centimetres, averaged 29.4 disposals for Gippsland in 2024.
Again, it's just Mr. Versatile, I think. He can play through the back line, off half-back, through the middle, and haven't seen him in the games I've watched him go forward, but there's definitely forward potential. his ability to hit the scoreboard when he gets stints through the middle as well. I think he's had 3 or 4 games last year where he kicked 2 odd goals. Um, just an intercepting halfback from what I see normally. Good speed, size, confident player. And he's also a really good athlete. There's size to work with. And yeah, just a super player. I think he's a bit different to his brothers, but again, what can't you ask for?
And I think a lot of people maybe get instantly deterred by the surname because of who was the first Duursma, the one with the bow and
Can
arrow.
you just give me
Yeah,
one
but
second?
yeah,
Thanks.
that's what I'll keep chatting away. But I mean, at the end of the day, guys, quality is quality. If it's a good young kid coming through the ranks, whether it's a Duursma, whether it's a Lawler, a Martin, or whoever, I think if they're there and available to select, that it's probably in our best interest to do so. Xavier Duursma, thank you, Grok. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting the height of these players coming through now. It sort of seems like 191 to 195 is now the new prototype for a midfielder, which is a little bit interesting. It's kind of changed over the journey, but he's a
Yeah.
Duursma pass. Damo, you wanting to pass? Gosh.
Um, Pass already is a bit interesting. I think he'll get a more full-time gig through the middle this year. So I guess we'll get to see where his best position is because that's
Yeah,
still quite undecided yet. But again, I think that's still a good problem to have at someone his age. You can throw him anywhere and he still plays his role. So finding his best position may take time and he's going to be a raw prospect, but I think if you get the best out of him, you could genuinely get an A grader.
he's definitely got plenty of talent. The next one, oh, my little cursor jumped off. Lewis Emmett plays for the Oakley
Um,
Chargers in the ruck, 198 centimeters. Not sure if he's still growing or not. We'll wait and find out. Average 16.7 disposals and 13.2 hitouts for Oakley. That is, I mean, that's domination in any sense, really, for a ruckman.
yeah, he's a really interesting one. Like, he's also best positioned for me, still undecided. Like, he's got genuine key forward attributes that many ruckmen don't have. You look at what Luke Jackson does. You can throw him down as a deep key forward and comfortably kick 2 3 goals while still influencing the game through stoppage. Again, he's very raw. Like, you'll see it come through this year when he becomes the main ruck for Vic Metro. He will get exposed at times because purely his size and his running capabilities are still a bit hindered, I think, is what you could say. But I think he's still developing. There's potential. There's everything to work with. Strong hands. Loves getting to the contest. Like, he's got a good running tank for a ruckman. That's
Yeah,
something
okay.
normally clubs try work on is their running. I don't think that will be an issue with him from day one. I think he had a 2K time trial of 6:30, 6:40 for the Chargers at one point. Don't fact check me on that, but I believe he got somewhere like that through a 2K, which
Yeah,
is
that's a huge run.
midfield level scores. So
Yeah.
an absolute athlete.
A few people have mentioned that he was actually invited to train with Richmond during the summer.
Yeah, he was the player that we got picked to train with us.
And it's interesting because we obviously drafted a couple of taller players like Sims. We picked up Jonty Fall, Armstrong. I know that those two are probably forwards. Sims is probably the only one who's maybe more of a direct comparison in terms of position. So it's interesting to see how much he comes into calculations for us. But yeah, he seems like a fascinating prospect.
Yeah, and who says he can't do a Mac Andrew and change his position? Like, I think you see what Mac Andrew is now, really raw coming through the draft. A lot of clubs passed on that,
Yeah,
thinking he's going to take 4 or 5 years, and now he's one of the most valuable players in the league because just what he can do in different positions. I think clubs will reach on him. I think if he's a top 10, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone by 4 or 5 purely because of the potential.
be interesting to see what clubs do in that space. Oliver Greaves from the Eastern Rangers, a midfielder, 191 centimetres, averaged 19.1 disposals for Eastern in 2024.
Um, yeah, so again, you sort of see Josh Smiley and the way he plays. I think you sort of basically see that in Oliver Greaves. I think his kicking action though is a bit um it's a bit to work on. I think that's what you can say. His kicking's a bit he's not there yet, but in the futures game it did look like he was working on it, which is always good to see. But with Oliver, his ability to hit the goal is insane. I think he's a real prospect to throw at a half forward line, slowly mix through the middle, sort of what you see in James Worpel, but sort of obviously taller. But
Yeah.
I think he's just a freak when it comes to near goal sense.
Okay, so his big point of difference from other mids would be his goal sense.
Yeah, I think his goal sense is something that I really rate. I won't show on the scoreboard, but the potential as a goal sense sort of midfielder is definitely there.
All right, one to keep in. These midfielders seem quite tall as well. Archie Ludowyke from Sandringham Dragons, a tall forward, 195 centimeters, and he kicked 13 goals for the Sandy Dragons in 2024.
I guess he's sort of your athletic key forward. I think there's not much more I can say. He's just that sort of athletic forward. Loves an odd goal, like goal of the year candidates left, right, and centre. A sort of that flair, X factor sort of key forward that you want to come to the footy and watch. If he goes to the right situation, I think you're looking at the best key forward in the draft as well. I don't think that's a argument's sake for me. 13 goals in 9 games for Sandy, averaging 3.7 marks as an underager as well. So I think he's just got the world of potential in a key forward line that was sort of stacked last year for Sandy, but still having
Yeah.
the ability to break out as well, I think just speaks to his level and think he will just get better.
Do you think with the picks that we've taken recently, would he be someone that's maybe not so much on our radar, but could still go high in his own right to another club?
I wouldn't
Or would
rule it
you or
out.
would
I
you
think
still would you still take him if he was there? I mean,
he's different to what we have. I think Jonty forward is that more athletic key forward we drafted, but
yeah,
Archie Ludowyke can win you games by himself. I think I'm trying to find a comparison in my head. I'm thinking of like a Jeremy Cameron sort of, just the way he can win games off his boot, kick goals from ridiculous areas, come down the ground and take a good mark. I think he's got Jeremy Cameron traits written all over him.
and I think this is where it becomes interesting with what that North Melbourne pick turns into. Like if it turns into pick 5, for example, maybe that sways us to go one way compared to if it ends up being a pick 10 or 11 or 12. Maybe someone like an Archie comes into calculations. I think it plays a very big part.
And a good thing is we have the ability to trade down and get further assets as well, which is obviously a good thing to have. If a club's really big on Archie and we're not, and he's in that range and they know someone's going to come swoop in from a club can sort of overpay to get into our pick, and we
Yeah.
walk out with a decent haul with still another top 10 pick to get a player that still suits our mould.
Exactly right. It's the beauty of the live trading. Fred Rodriguez, who I know Grok just mentioned, I've seen a lot of people in draft threads mention that they really love the look of Fred. South Fremantle he plays for as a midfielder, 183 centimetres, averages 18.8 disposals for WA in the under-18s champs.
Yeah, just a super clean player, I think. With the midfield time he'll get now, this is a genuine bolter for a number 1 pick. This is the guy I've got with Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves, who I think can break out into that number 1 sort of calculations. His ability to kick handball off both feet as well, something that an 18-year-old kid shouldn't be able to do. I think it just speaks to his character. He's apparently, from what I've heard from guys that I work with in Western Australia, that he's a really mature player, always asking questions, always wants to learn. He sort of annoys the right people is the sort of thing I'll say. Always busting
Right,
his
yeah.
ass about coaches. How can I get better? What did I do wrong here? Just a super mature kid, and you'll see it in his footy this year. Will be a super exciting player to watch.
And it's actually interesting that he's probably on the smaller side of the midfielders that we see these days, but good to hear that I think he's got a bit of pace to burn as well. A few people have asked it's probably a hard one to answer, I suppose, but is there the genuine go home factor risk attached to someone like Fred?
I think that'll come clear more through the interviews that come after the championships. That's when those sort of indicators are made aware. Sort of, you hear the interviews, they sort of ask, what's your favourite club? How close are you to the club? And then sort of questions that sort of hint towards those go home factors but don't fully expose it.
Yep.
And that's where sort of clubs get the indicator like, okay, he might be here throughout his rookie contract and then start sniffing out to WA. But with Fred, I think we fully take the punt. If he gets to the levels that I think he can and be a top 5, top 3 pick, it's worth all the shot to bring him here because he genuinely could change the way our midfield looks. We're crying out for a sort of quick, clean midfielder, and Fred Rodriguez has all the tools to be that, and could be a lot more AFL ready as well to what a lot of people think. He's not terribly skinny as well, which is again
Yeah.
something you do see in midfielders that size. They come in a bit small frame like Jagger Smith. He's got a bit more pork on him, so
Well, he adds exactly what Grox said. Gives us pace, capital pace. So that would. It sounds like people would be willing to use our first pick, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it might be, to land this bloke. So I think Fred will be one that we're watching with very keen interest over the course of 2025.
yep, for sure.
Next one, Samuel Cumming from North Adelaide, another midfielder, 184 centimetres, averaged 11.5 disposals for South Australia in the under-18 champ, so as an underager, which is always good to see them getting games there. What do we know about Samuel?
He's an absolute ball magnet in the under-18s. He was the under-18s MVP, I believe, 27 touches, and he averaged about 6 marks, 4 clearances. Yeah, so he's just an absolute magnet with the ball, and I'm not going to read too much into those numbers because Sandful under-18s, under-16s level numbers do tend to get a bit inflated. So you
Right.
see in the championships he did average his 11 and a half touches, but he was playing more through the wing and half back for South Australia, but for his under-18s level, he was playing as a full-time mid. So that's sort
Yep.
of why he was being more exposed around the ball. But again, his consistency and his volume. So he's always there around the ball. Whether he gets to it or not, he's there. So his
Yep.
work rate is something that obviously a lot of clubs value. And I do believe Adelaide have some sort of NGA from what I've heard, but it most likely won't get approved. But from what I've
Oh,
been
okay.
told, apparently Adelaide do have some sort of connection, but I don't know how real it is, but just something to put out there just in case if it does come out.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, that would be slightly annoying if there was another one taken off the table, but yeah, and if an accumulator who just finds himself in the right spots and works hard both ways, there's some pretty good traits to take into the AFL, I would say.
Yeah, he's a
Josh Lindsay from the Geelong Falcons, a medium defender, 182 centimetres, averaged 15.3 disposals for Geelong in 2024.
yeah, so sort of that sort of outside player, I think, who will play more wing this year, which is I think his preferred position. In the futures match, he had 20 touches, 7 marks, operating off, I believe, the left wing. So he's a
Okay.
really good left foot kick, real footy IQ sort of player. Again, he's just a really good by foot player. So I think someone we can look at as a Jaden Short replacement, but again, it would be a heavy reach with one of our picks if it is 1 and what I think would be 5.
Yep.
I think it would be too much of a reach for sort of that halfback with a good kick that you can find in any other draft or deeper through the rounds.
Yeah, okay. So maybe if you were able to split one of those picks and have something a bit in the mid-teens, late teens, that's where it might come
Yeah,
into play.
yeah, yeah.
Although the appeal of a nice left foot kick is quite appealing. For some reason
Yeah,
they just seem
and
to look a lot nicer kicking the ball.
yeah, and who says he can't have a breakout year like Xavier Lindsay did? So where we actually did consider him with one of our picks before Melbourne did pick him up. So we
Yep,
just don't know what can happen, but I just think it'd be far too much of a reach.
at this stage. Yeah, fair call. No, that's fair enough. Thomas Burton from the Western Jets, a midfielder, 178 centimetres, averaged 23.7 disposals for the Jets in 2024.
Sort of that more aggressive halfback. I think that more sort of burst off halfback, kick through the middle, and then just run straight through the spine sort of halfback. So what you see with Rioli and Nick Dacos, Hayden Young, the way they get forward when the ball's moving as well. But then his sort of work rate running back towards defensively does need work. Something that I
Right.
did notice when watching him quite closely is that his ability to get back on turnover is a bit raw, but again, not an issue for concern for mine because that can be taught within a few weeks. Like that's something that I don't worry about. But again, 23 touches for the Western Jets, 5.5 tackles per game, I believe. I only wrote down the disposal numbers, but yeah, he's a accumulator. That's what I've put down for him. He gets a lot of the ball, good user, a typical dash off halfback sort of halfback. Yeah,
Okay, so we just want to see a bit more of the pushing back, the two-way running.
defensive side. Yeah,
Yeah. So do you feel like that similar that he would be a bit of a
yeah.
reach with our two picks if they're
Yeah,
top
I would
teams?
say like he's in that sort of Lindsay range as well.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Riley Onley, the next one, who I know a lot of people are speaking about as well, from the Murray Bush Rangers, a midfielder, 194 centimetres, averaged 15.3 disposals for Vic Country in the under-18 champs.
Yeah, again, one of the ones to look out for, another bolter that you could look out for. Again, he's a sort of rare breed of midfielder. When you hear that sort of term get thrown around, it's hard, obviously, not to get excited. He's just a really good player around stoppage. I think that's something that you notice. Really good at getting the ball through stoppage, then using it as well. But he's that battering ram. He runs straight through opponents. He's not afraid to take on players, and he does a pretty fair good job at it as well. Like you see the hits that he does take and comes out first best. It's just disgusting to watch, really, how good he can be. It's again something that I'm really looking forward to watch Riley Onley do, and I think he's got so much potential to work out at AFL level. But again, for the fit, it's a bit tough for us. I think you look at those bigger midfielders and we've got our fair stock. But if he becomes a clear number one candidate, it'd be hard not to pass up on him. I
Yeah.
think that's the
I mean,
position he gets to.
you can never have enough genuinely good midfielders, can you? And like I
Yeah.
said, if he puts himself up into those calculations, Grox mentioned that he reckons it's a Dusty and Cripps love child.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. His forward craft as well, he's just unspoken about. I think I wouldn't say that Harvey Langford rise because Harvey Langford was practically unranked, but he can genuinely pop up into that number one, top three conversation before champs even begin if he gets off on the right foot.
There'll be another one added to my list to watch very closely. Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves from the Dandenong Stingrays, midfielder, 185 centimetres, averaged 14.9 disposals for the Stingrays in 2024.
Yeah, at the moment, this is my favourite player in the draft for
Oh,
pure
okay.
reason because he would be a perfect fit for what we need through the middle. We're sort of lacking that sort of outside class, like you see with Errol Gould and the way he uses the ball. I think you look at Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves, his ability to win games, his clutch factor is something that a lot of clubs rate. His ability to kick a goal when needed, but his ability to defend as well. 21 touches and 7 marks through the Stingrays. But his ability to use the ball by hand and foot as well is something that obviously it's hard not to fall in love with. I think he might be a raw half forward to begin with, but then matures through the wing. And then you start talking about is he good enough to play through the inside? So he's that sort of project type midfielder you want. One I'm willing to take a punt on early. And if he does talk in that top 10, top 8 conversation, and we've got pick 5, I'm saying put it in now.
You reckon? I see. So you
Yeah,
would say you would feel comfortable to use 5 and you wouldn't think it was a reach?
no. For me, he's going to explode, and I might come back and look at this in a year's time and think, what was I saying? But from the footage that I've seen, he he's probably exactly that sort of wing that Uze's looking for, something that the
Yeah, okay.
halfbacks can deliver to, and then he does that kick through the middle, or he can just put that long ball inside 50 accurately as well, not those dumpy, shitty kicks that we saw last year.
Dave the Dasher put down Houghton 2.0.
I would go a bit further from that. I think he's just sort of he's 185 centimeters, but he looks a bit lanky. He's got a skinny frame, which is the
He,
part that obviously we want to see improve. But obviously, AFL clubs and their strength and conditioning programs are unmatched. So he will put on size pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm super, super keen on Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves and genuinely think he's a breakout candidate as well. There's a lot, but for me, he's my number one.
oof. All right, well, we'll definitely chuck him on the list to keep an eye out for. And I think this is the last one we've got. Cooper, Duff, Titler, Calder Cannons, ruck forward, 199 centimetres, averaged 17.2 disposals for Calder in 2024. That's a decent disposal average for a 199 centimetre ruck forward.
Yeah, this is Kalatumi's man, so he's really big on Cooper Duff Tyler to be that sort of breakout number one. And obviously, you look at the disposal numbers for a ruck forward and you think, the hell is he doing? Like, his ability to find the ball and his, what's it called? He's the ball at ground ability that he has for his size is something you don't really see with players at his age, especially. Obviously, those skills do come around as you develop, but he's already got those skills developed. Again, he will take time. I think you're looking at 2 or 3 years before you really see the best of him.
Yeah,
But again, get the size on him, you get the right sort of system around him, the mentorship, and you're looking at one of those once in a sort of 10, 15-year draft sort of players that come around and think, shit, why didn't we look at him earlier and think, when can we get the next Cooper Duff Tyler?
Jesus.
Yeah, I
That
think,
is, yeah, okay.
yeah,
The
there's a
hype
lot of
train's
hype on
real.
him. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
right.
a freak.
Well, we'll keep an eye on him as well. Would he be, assuming if we had something around the pick 5, if he was like, how much is it a reach? Is it too much of a
No,
project play? Do
I
we need
think
something more certain? Like, what are your thoughts?
um, if he continues the same production that we've seen, I think it wouldn't be a reach at all. I know he's ranked like 9, 10 at the moment, but I wouldn't think it's a reach because the genuine ceiling he has, it's worth it. But again, the floor is something to be like considered as well. He's got that sort of high ceiling, low floor type of player. It's sort of you sort of see it with Samson Ryan. You think he's got the ceiling to be something great. Like he's got the tools. He's good down forward, good ruck craft, but he can't put it all together.
Yeah.
But if he does, you think, okay, we've got a pretty good player. That's what I think Cooper Duff Tyler has. Really low floor, but high ceiling.
Well, Baculus, as you just put in the chat, we will keep an eye on him. I mean, we are going to be thereabouts with some high-end draft picks, so we will keep an eye on all of these kids. The last one who we don't have on here, but Louis Callaway is obviously a father-son prospect, the son of Duncan, who is eligible for this year, plays for Sturt. I put a video up on him a little while ago, and I thought he was projecting in the right way, playing as a midfielder last year. I expect him to get a bit more midfield minutes for Sturt this year. What's the expected range for Callaway? Oh, the actual interesting part is we only have picks 1 and whatever North Melbourne's pick is. We don't actually have any other picks to the best of my knowledge. So we're going to have to acquire something somewhere to be able to get Louis if that's how it pans out.
Yeah, with Louis Callaway, one of the things that made comment to me was his size. I think that was something that made sort of aware. And when I saw him play, his size was a bit of an issue. But through the videos I have seen and the little bits of clips, there seems to be a bit more muscle on him, which is
Yeah, there's
obviously,
actually the one
yeah.
thing I noticed. I think the SA Futures game must have been earlier in the year because how he looked there to how he looked in one of the last few games for Sturt, he had put on quite a bit more muscle, which was good.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that was his biggest sort of place, or his weakness, I guess, was his size, and he was sort of getting pushed out of the contest a lot. And he had inspirations of wanting to be like a full time mid, but basically was made or was told that his size would get him bullied out of the contest, shoved around a lot. So I think he's taken that to a bit to heart, which is obviously what you want, put on the size. But talking about his skill, sort of that outside clean midfielder, that good by foot, real good two-way runner. So again, something that we are looking at, but again, I haven't seen anything that makes me go, wow. So I think you're looking at like what Sam Banks offers now is something that he could offer. I don't think there's much difference between them two as players, but who knows? He obviously could come in and blossom. So for me, and in that range, that 30 to 40,
Yeah,
maybe.
okay.
Yeah,
The defensive running is actually one of the big things I noticed as well when watching his footage. Like he really puts the head down and runs back hard defensively on turnover, which I thought was a nice thing to see. But yeah, hopefully he kicks it up another notch or two this year. I thought he was well skilled as well, and yeah, he could be a nice little pickup in that second or third, or maybe not the second round, maybe the third round potentially at this stage. But we'll see how he goes there. Cameron, I know you mentioned it. I was in the chat. Sorry, you mentioned a comment about the other player I did a video on, which was Jack Lees. He's probably still, he's for the draft next year. So there's not a hell of a lot of other footage and stuff available for him at the moment. So we will probably revisit him later on in the year once he starts playing a little bit more for West Villwood Torrens, and he'll do some work for South Australia, no doubt, as well in the futures. But I'm sure we can speak about him in some later shows. Do you reckon?
yeah, for sure. I think as the carnivals go through in his season with the under-18s, I think he'll become a more of a spoken topic because you sort of see the numbers that he has at under 16 level, and it's hard not to get excited. But again, I think you got to notice that it is under 16 level, and he can't really get too stuck into it yet until what he does against your sort of older guys, and that's what he's going to get exposed to this year.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but he seems like he's super keen to learn. Like I said, he left a comment back on the video we posted of him acknowledging the feedback on defensive work, and he says it's something he's working on. Seems like a super great kid. We'll actually try and get him on later in the year as well. But
Didn't
yeah,
notice
hopefully
that.
he's on the Facebook. He and his dad
All right,
both left
not
some
bad.
comments, which was good. But yeah, hopefully he kicks on as well. But that is a draftee wrap for the 2025 prospects anyway. So Cam, thank you so much, mate, for jumping on tonight. I know you're a very busy man. And I
No
appreciate all
worries,
your
no
thoughts
worries.
on the draftees. And no doubt we'll track a few of these players as the year gets on, and maybe we'll check in midway through the year and see
For
if anything's
sure, no
changed.
worries. Too
And
easy.
yeah, good luck with everything work-wise and on the
Thank you.
family front. And
Thank
we'll
you.
no
Thank
doubt
you.
stay in touch. But no, thank you again, mate.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
support.
No, too easy. Thank you.
No dramas. Until the next one, guys. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.